Okay. Call to order the Rice Creek Watershed Board of Managers regular meeting. It's Wednesday, November 13th, 2024, 9 a.m. We are at the Shoreview City Hall Council Chambers. Let the record reflected all managers are present. Louis Sickman is joining us today. Hi, Louis. So the next thing I think is to set the agenda.
Yes, Board of Managers, staff handed out a Minnesota Watersheds annual meeting proposed motion to gather the comments from the workshop yesterday. No proposed changes to the agenda.
Can I have a motion to set the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed.
Mr. Chair, I would
minutes.
move approval of the minutes, since that is where we're at in the agenda. I would have moved to approve the regular meeting minutes from October 23, 2024, and then November 4, 2024 workshop.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Okay, I guess we're already up to open mic. Oh, you're just in time, Mr. Stoward, open mic.
Walk right in the door and right out. Perfect timing.
Christopher Stowe, 426 Pine Street. I'm wondering if I could talk to you guys off the record.
No,
Can you make a motion to talk off the record at all?
we'd have to have a justification of the law to close our meetings to make it private.
Okay. All right. Well, at the last workshop, last week, the topics of the agenda were how this board would like to proceed with the two law firms that it has been engaged with since 2008, I believe, and 10/22/32. I showed up for the topic at 10/22/32 and sat through approximately an hour-long discussion of which law firm to go with. Ultimately, you decided to continue paying both firms. A couple of key questions were not asked. Number one, how come we've had two law firms since 2008? I believe Houston Engineering was also hired in 2008, and they are still being used as well. How come? I believe you went with two law firms in Houston Engineering when the lawsuit with Rick Wilder became an issue. It is also significant that Rick Wilder won in court and you were ordered to give him 100 continuous acres, of which over 70 were flooded out. You needed to replace that with 140 acres at a price of $130,000 currently. Currently, the engineering firm or board is saying you only need to replace about 20 acres. It is interesting that when the board needs to buy wetland credits, a finger is being pushed on the scale. Next, the topic of 10/22/32 was discussed, and I was prevented to contribute to the conversation, but I had to sit and listen to Nick lie to the board. This is the second time I can document that Nick has lied to the board. You're using information from a 2018 engineering survey to justify current conditions, but you lowered the culvert on Pine Street in 2020. That increased my flooding issues, and I was told that there was nothing wrong with the Andal culvert, which even the engineering firm on your payroll has found issues with, as well as several others downstream. Now you're discussing lower the culvert on West Pine Street and that you will have to get wetlands credits. And the president of this board is saying that you might not have to buy as many wetland credits as the analysis calls for. And the interesting part about that is you said it's type 3 wetlands and you get several acres, but during a storm surge, type 3 wetlands is a lot wetter and deeper than type 1 or 2, I believe. All that water is going to go into that same system. Unfortunately for me, I have the time and resources to come to these meetings. But no one on this board has been elected. Everyone but one, I believe, is retired. It's become painfully apparent in the last meeting when one of the members wanted to change his vote because he wanted to dry out his property, his father's property, and his constituents in Columbus while not fixing downstream problems. I've also been told now that the Andal Street culvert, if I want to lower that, because you guys lowered the pipe north of me, that's an improvement on my part. Who paid for the one north of me, though? He does want to fix the downstream problems, but it's ridiculous to lower pipes upstream before addressing and lowering pipes downstream. I've said this multiple times. And I think what you guys want to do is you want to lower it and then say it's an as-is condition, and then, oh, it's an improvement downstream and cost me more money. When you guys initially came to my property, though, I was being accused of damaging wetlands, and then you come to find out, oh, that used to be a parking lot where they used to park 121 cars, but now it's underwater. Currently, I believe you do not have enough elevation in the system, as you couldn't even do the inspection that runs through the Robinson sod farms until late this summer because the system was at 95% capacity, and yet you want to lower pipes. This doesn't make any sense at all. When the culvert on Pine Street was lowered in 2020, I believe the board member's wife was a member of the Columbus City Hall. It's weird how the city of Columbus had no problems making unsafe driving conditions on Pine Street, unsafe power utility poles, and unsafe conditions for using the snowmobile path. Because you guys had to go so deep, you're sending the water uphill from the grade of the road. Where'd you send it? All to my place. I complained about the pipe on Andal Street for 5-6 years. You still lowered the pipe on me, and now you want to lower the West Pine Street pipe. That's just going to dump more water into the system. Why aren't we fixing the pipes downstream and increasing their size before we go north? On your maps, you didn't show the road contributing to the 1022-32 system, but the vast majority of the water coming in the system on Branch 4 is coming from Pine Street and heading west and dumping into that system. You got a little map on the road that just goes to the farm field north of me. The vast majority of this water, though, is actually coming from where Columbus's industrial complex is. So it's either coming south and heading west, or it's shooting across that other road, and that's why you want to drop those pipes. But all that vast majority of water is flooding out 1022-32. So to sit there and say, oh, Houston said it was good in 2018, but we're going to lower pipes in 2020 and now 2024, and say that, oh, we're going to use those old numbers. Once you start lowering pipes, you got to readdress the whole system.
Thank you, Mr. Stowe.
Houston, we have a problem.
Anyone else for open mic? If not, we'll move on. Rule adoption, I believe, is next. Is that
Correct. Board of Managers, next is rule adoption that you discussed at the workshop yesterday. Patrick Hughes will address the matter.
Yes, Board of Managers, rule revision, like we discussed yesterday at the workshop. The public review period has ended. That was on September 20th, and you held a public hearing as well for comments on September 11th. Since that time, we have reviewed the comments with our staff and engineer and council and provided a response to those. We've updated the rule language with a few of those comments. Included in the packet is the rule with the track changes, the clean version, the proposed response to the comments, as well as a resolution. So staff would be recommending that the board consider the enclosed resolution to, 1, adopt the proposed revisions to the district rule, direct the administrator to publish legal notice of the adoption of the rule and transmit to the necessary parties, direct the administrator to transmit the response to comments to those commenting parties, and provide for the revised rules to be effective as of January 1st, 2025. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
any questions, Patrick? We had a rather lengthy discussion yesterday. Can I have a motion on resolution 2024-10?
Mr. Chair, I would move Resolution 2024-10, adopting rule revision. Be it therefore resolved that the board hereby adopt the proposed revisions to the district rules as amended above. Be it further resolved that the district administrator, on certification of the revised rules by the board secretary, is to publish legal notice of the adoption on the revised rules, file the certified revised rules with each county recorder and the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources, provide notice of adopted rules to each public transportation authority within the district, mail a copy of the certified revised rules by January 1, 2025 to the governing body of each city and township within the district, and file a certified copy of the revised rules in the official minute book of the district. Be it further resolved that the district administrator is to supply a copy of the district's written responses to comments to each of the commenting parties and otherwise make the response to comments available as part of the public rulemaking record. And be it finally resolved that the revised rules are effective as of January 1, 2025, and will apply to all applications for permits that have not been submitted to the district and deemed complete within the meaning of the Minnesota statute 14.99 by December 31st, 2024.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Just a comment, really. I do appreciate the robust discussion yesterday. Admittedly, I don't think ever going to be an expert on all of the rules that have been set forth before us. I do just want to, note a couple of things. Listen, I'm not going to vote no and implode what you're doing. I understand it. I did take some time last night and into this morning to go through the graph that Patrick reminded us that was in the packet in June, kind of the comparison between the state standards and what the watershed does. Quite honestly, I think sometimes when these packets get so big, we forget there's little things tucked in there, and probably I looked at it the first time and didn't even realize what the heck I was looking at. But I did go through that. I was surprised how many of the state regulations versus the watersheds were different, in that the watershed does have a lot of extra layers in place that are above and beyond what the state has required. And I know we dialogued this yesterday as well. There's no statutory requirement that says we can't dialogue this in a shorter time frame. We don't have to wait every 2 years to dialogue this. If I'm understanding correctly, also it's not my job to tell people what to put on workshop agendas, but I do think that it would be an education process for me and maybe the rest of the board to kind of go through that list of the state comparison to the watershed in a more in-depth why. Again, I think I stated yesterday, none of us, I don't think the watershed's existence is to aggrieve other cities within the district or counties. And so I think anything that we can do as a governing body that encourages, open dialogue and positive relationships. Some projects are difficult, some are, not as complex as others. I understand rules. In general, I don't like them because it's hard for rules. Don't one size fits all. They just can't. So I appreciate some of the updated languages that related to variances in bizarre situations where the applicant shouldn't have to keep coming back to staff or to the board of managers to get things to happen. So I appreciate those types of things. But again, I would just encourage staff to maybe be prepared sometime in the 2025 calendar year to sit down and have those conversations, because I want to definitely acknowledge the comments that came through from, kind of those three cities that seem to have similar issues and repetitive issues. If there are ways that we can be more mindful in addressing those, whether it's through reviewing our own regulatory language or whatever that is. I don't know. I don't know what the perfect solution is, but I'm happy to move forward with what's in here with, again, the caveat of let's dialogue this in a more robust manner to really understand why the watershed may be a little bit more heavy on the regulatory side versus what those state statutory minimums are. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think once we've had a couple months off,
I get it. I get it.
and particularly, at some points we have a lower workload than we do others. When we have a little lower workload, we'll do that. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I understand. Thank you.
I agree, Mr. President.
Any other comments?
So, Mr. President, I don't disagree with the comments made by any of my colleagues, but I would also add to it, I think that in addition to looking at the state minimum standards, you need to understand what the cities have in place at this time, so that, if they already have a standard that's in place, then that should be recognized. Now, maybe their standard is not as high as what the watershed district is. Maybe it just meets the state minimum standards. But nevertheless, it should be understood as to what the cities have. And thus, when you can look at that, as I said, sometimes you could just put a rule in that says, listen, if you meet the rules of the city of whatever, then that's fine with us. And I'm saying that the city's standards would be acceptable, not necessarily the watershed adopting the watershed standards. They may have a higher standard, lower standard. I've been here at the board and listened to the administrator when I've asked him, put him on the spot, about if a city had a more stricter standard in the watershed district, which counts? Well, the stricter standard of the watershed of the city counts, not the one of the watershed. But when it's a less strict standard, but still meets the state minimum, then the watershed district counts. And I think that that's a problem, and an unnecessary problem. I think that's duplication and not really working with the partnership. So I would ask that additional look at it, not just with the state standard, which we had provided earlier in the year, but also to understand what the cities are. And I don't think it's something we have to wait necessarily for some time when there's a opening or a dead time or such. Or that could very well be slip into the entire year. I would like to see it pursued soon.
All right, noted.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'm not going to repeat what, I agree with what everybody has said so far, and there's no sense repeating it.
No, it's heard.
Yep, so I just want to make myself clear that I do agree with
Yep.
what has been said so far.
Yeah.
One more comment, Mr. Chair, maybe just to help staff navigate this process, because I think it's a big conversation. I don't think it's a one workshop conversation. So to even break down, you know, the relationship between the watershed and the cities that do have their own, you know, regulations or rules in place, and then, you know, to come back and review, you know, kind of those state minimum standards compared to the watershed. And it might even help to maybe include examples on how, you know, in whatever instance, like this is why this exists. Because I will be honest, when we get into the real technical weeds, that's your area of expertise. Certainly not mine, but I think it might help make the conversation, you know, like wacka for dummies. Me being the dummy in this case, because it certainly is a lot of information and a lot of, I mean, there's just a lot. It's a very big topic. So I agree that it's a big conversation. We got a lot of things going on right now, but I think if we break that conversation up and set a goal by, you know, mid-year 2025, we should be able to have the time to have a full conversation. And I'm not even suggesting that we come back here and, you know, change A, B, and C. That might not be the case. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I think that it's a conversation that can certainly be had if we break it up.
Absolutely. Got it.
Thank you.
So are we ready to vote?
I'll call the question, Mr. President.
All right. We have a roll call. Bradley, yes. Robertson.
Aye.
Wagaman.
Yes.
Waller.
Yes.
Wynant.
Yes.
Thank you all for participation. Okay, we're on to the employee handbook updates. That was scintillating yesterday, and we have an opportunity, as I'm looking at it, to approve the proposed changes to the district employee handbook. I will move to approve district employee handbook amendments to sections 4.2, employee classification, section 4.4, time records, 7.2, vacation, and section 7.3.1, earned sick and safe time leave.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Thank you. Minnesota Annual Meeting Delegates and Voting. That was another fun one yesterday. Yesterday was a lot of fun.
Yeah, what a hoot.
Yeah, so Nick, thank you.
Exciting.
Nick has provided us a list of the agenda items that we discussed. And that proposes a motion first to designate Manager Bradley and Manager Wynant as the delegates to 2024 Minnesota Watershed Business Meeting, with Manager Waller as the alternate. I will so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
He also kindly set forth the record of our discussion and we need for a motion to direct the delegates to vote in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District positions, voting yes in favor of resolutions 1, 10, 13, and no or opposition to resolutions 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12. Gives you a sense of what we're thinking. On the agenda for the 2024 Minnesota Watersheds Business Meeting, I will so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I mean, I'll just make a comment. What a fun conversation. And really, I am going to work the word calcareous, Ben, into my just, I'm going to,
At least once a week.
yeah, like if there's a Trivia Pursuit question out there, I might really wow some people with my fancy new grammar.
Yeah, as you drive by a bog, you say, I wonder if
That's
that
a
is.
calcareous. Yes, but I would just add also, first, thank you for taking the time to commit to even go up here for 3 days. I don't have time like that, so thank you for doing that. I am curious because I know we dialogued, of the 13 things that were on that list, like kind of what the backstory is and if there's any spicy aftermath. Like certainly come share that
yes.
in the workshop because I am interested trying to read between the lines of the narratives on some of these, like what's really at the heart of kind of some of that. So
Got it. We'll do that. So all in favor, say aye.
I
Any opposed? None? Passes. Yeah, they managed to get under the skin of that particular watershed district that was responsible for, I think, 8 of those.
well, I mean,
Yeah, well.
you lose $1 million,
you
you're
lo-
probably
yeah,
going to be a little upset.
I would, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I guess we're up to, Nick, are we a Ramsey County Ditch 4 repair, phase 2 with Tom?
Yes, that is correct.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. President, Board of Managers. If you recall, we've completed the first phase of Ramsey County Ditch 4 repair. And we structured that repair to focus on the initial phase on the vegetation management, tree removal, seeding, stabilization. But during the investigation of the initial investigation of the repair, we discovered erosion in the channel between Little Joanna and Big Joanna. And if you recall, Mr. Fox and Mr. Skog had come to a meeting, both a board meeting and a workshop, expressing their concern, and that we expressed then that we had already planned to do that repair as a separate entity in order to get the best price for each, the best, most focused bid for tree removal versus having a general contractor. So today, for your consideration, is awarding the contract to do that repair work between Little Joanna and Big Joanna.
Mr. President.
Sure.
I'll move to award the contract of Dunaway Construction at the price of $74,600 to complete channel stabilization repairs and authorize the administrator to execute the contract documents as necessary on the advice of the engineer and council, and to execute change orders increasing the contract price by the amount not to exceed 30% of the contract, $22,380.
I will second that. We were going to fight to second that one. I want to, before we go, I just want to say, I thought we showed the district at its best when we responded on the fly to a request to get in and fix a problem that needed to be fixed. And we did a good, as best I can tell, we did a good job. So with that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So thank you for that. Tom, thank you. Our annual Consider League of Minnesota Cities Liability Coverage Waiver Form. We've at least shortened the discussion of it even here, which is fabulous. Basically, what this does is, to the extent that there is insurance provided by the pursuant to 466.04, and we have that insurance obtained from League of Minnesota Cities and IT, whoever IT is, that we accept liability up to the coverage of our insurance. So we've approved this this will be our 10th year. So I would move that the district waives the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by Minnesota statute section 644.04 to the extent of limits of the liability coverage obtained from LMCIT. Oh, it's the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed. Nick, professional services.
Yes, Board of Managers, next on the agenda is your professional services authorization. This is found on page 280 of your packet. Every 2 years, as we've been discussing, you solicit interest of proposals for professional and technical services. On October 23rd, the board provided consensus direction to develop and amend contracts with Houston, Redpath, and Rymark. At your November 4th meeting, you interviewed representatives of Rinke Noonan and Smith Partners for legal services. Point of clarity, you asked about provisional components of the contracts and if you're able to terminate those agreements, and you indeed are. That language is in them. You can immediately terminate the agreement with the parties, as they could with us as well. Within the packet there, this is your authorization for me to proceed with legal counsel and enter into these documents with their assistance. There are 4 distinct resolutions for each of the service areas. There is a number of them numbered 24-12, which is legal services in different arrangements. So you would move each one of these independently. And for, like I said, 24-12, you are to select one. The first contract, going a little bit deeper there on 24-12 and legal services on page 282, would represent the current situation with Smith Partners and Rinke Noonan. And you'll see on the second, be it therefore resolved, the closing sentence talks about the delineation of duties, which we've generalized to be general counsel versus public drainage system. But I note that it goes beyond that. We have Rinke Noonan Services working on other issues and Smith Partners engaging as different projects come through. And obviously, we can offer clarification to the firms as you see fit.
So is it the wishes of the board that we vote on the 3 resolutions unrelated to legal services now and then discuss the legal services, or discuss legal services now and do them all at once?
Mr. Chair, I think what you are advising to discuss the 3 initially and then circle back to legal, I think that's probably
That's great.
appropriate.
So as far as I know, there is no debate or discussion about anything other than the legal. And I was pleased at the presentations we received from both law firms. I think John Cole was very direct and honest with us that he was not currently situated in a position where he felt he had the capacity to represent the entire process of representing our firm at this time. I talked to him separately and said, well, you know, if you want to go for that in 2 years, you know, come with a method to accomplishing that. So I have no question in my mind that we are, as recognized by Mr. Cole, we have the best situation we can have in this state. We've got the best 2 law firms. We've got the law firm that's best knows is very good on drainage. We have a law firm that represents a lot of other districts and has business functions and has done an admirable job for us for 16 years or so. And so I'm going to be in favor of the motion that includes both law firms continuing as we have. I also want to remind people that these are personal. We're talking about people's incomes and livelihood, and that without a really good reason, you should not upset that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are we discussing legal now? I thought we were discussing that last.
I didn't think there was any discussion about the other.
Oh, I thought we were going to vote on those motions separate.
I'm
and
sorry, I
then,
misunderstood
no,
your
that's okay.
direction.
I misunderstood. So,
Okay.
Misunderstood also.
But anyway, you've now heard what I have to say about the legal.
Yeah.
Well,
So do you want, should we move the 3 that we're in agreement with?
that's what I
Okay, we'll do that.
thought our chair's wisdom was bestowed upon us in that
All right,
manner.
so that takes us up to 2024-11,
Yes.
engineering services.
Mr. Chair, I would move Resolution 2024-11, retention of engineering services. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Managers elect to extend the services agreement for the engineering services with Houston Engineering, Inc. for an additional 2-year period. Be it further resolved that the administrator is authorized to enter into an extension of the existing agreement with Houston Engineering in accordance with the terms of the proposal received and such other terms as are not inconsistent therewith.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? If not, Bradley, yes. Robertson?
Aye.
Waterman?
Aye.
Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
So now we go on to 2013.
And
2413.
let me do accounting services. So, Mr. Chair, I move resolution of 2024-13, retention of accounting services. Let it therefore be resolved that the Board of Managers elect to extend the service agreement for accounting services with Redpath and Company for an additional 2-year period, 2025 through 2026. Be further resolved that the administrator is authorized to enter into an extension of the existing agreement with Redpath and Company in accordance with the terms of proposals received and such other terms as are not inconsistent therewith.
Any discussion? Oh, a second. Any discussion?
Second?
Yeah, you're good. Let's have Steve Wagaman second that. Any discussion? Bradley, yes. Robertson?
Aye.
Wagaman?
Aye.
Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Aye.
That takes us into 2024-14, Information Technology Services. I will move that the administrator is authorized to enter into an extension of the existing agreement with Rymark in accordance with the terms of the proposed received and of such other terms as are not inconsistent therewith. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Bradley, yes. Robertson?
Aye.
Wagaman?
Aye.
Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
All right, now we're to legal. I've made my speech.
You made your speech.
I made it.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd move for purposes of discussion, Resolution 2024-12, retention of legal services. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Managers select to extend the services agreement for legal services with Smith Partners and Rinke Noonan for an additional 2-year period, 2025 through 26. Be further resolved that the administrator is authorized to enter into the extension of the existing agreements with Smith Partner and Rinke Noonan in accordance with the terms of the proposals received and such other terms as are not inconsistent therewith and consistent with current delineation of duties between the firm, which will be classified further in discussion with firms. And be it further resolved, where the scope of a particular project involves subject areas normally handled by both firms, the administrator has authority to select one of the two firms to provide all legal services associated with that project.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
I have a couple of questions, if I may, Mr. Chair. First, when we put the RFP process out and those proposals come back, do they include, unless we got it, and again, these encyclopedic-sized agendas we're getting these days, did that include, like, costs? Like retainers and all those things? Okay, that must have been in another jumbo packet. Okay, and then my follow-up question, Nick, and I know we talked very briefly at the head of this meeting. It's my understanding, and maybe I interpreted the dialogue that we had in that workshop a little differently. It was my understanding that both law firms independently have not only the experience with other watershed clients, but I'm going to refer to it as a la carte. I know that's not the fancy legal term, but a la carte capacities as it relates to serving the watershed if one in their capacity were to do so versus two. Nick, did I misunderstand that, or am I not understanding that correctly? I'm just, again, asking.
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, Manager Robertson. Yes, both firms have identified work in all areas that watersheds endeavor in. And Rinke Noonan notes its expertise in public drainage.
So if I could comment on that, one thing I have learned from a long career was that lawyers are not fungible. And while Rinke Noonan has partners who do business law, I've not met any of them. I've not vetted them. I've not gotten reviews on them. And they may be the best people in the world. May not be. I would not want to hire one on the blind. That's my view on that one.
if I may.
Yes.
It's my understanding that these contracts aren't specific to like just Attorney Chuck or just Attorney Lewis or just Attorney John Kolb. You are employing the entire legal firm, correct? Am I correct in that or no? Are we,
There's what the contract says, and then there's reality.
well,
I mean, reality. Reality is we
that
have.
would be perception versus reality
So,
and
in Smith Partners, they have, Mr. Smith, how many people do you have in your firm, lawyers?
3 attorneys.
3 attorneys. We see 2 of them.
okay.
And Ricky Noonan, they're a bigger firm. They do divorces and things. Divorces and things have nothing to do with what we do.
Well,
So I'm just saying, I wouldn't want to hire a business lawyer because John Kolb has said he hasn't the capacity to do it all at this time. He'd have to rearrange his work. So he would really want to bring on somebody and vet that person with us and have us meet that person and determine that that person had the similar personalities and styles that we've come to know and love with John.
And that can be done.
It could be done, but not this year,
if I may.
2 years.
My comments are not, I'm not sharing or asking because I'm trying to imply that my opinion carries more weight than anyone else's. I appreciate your comments and your legal background. I appreciate that. My comments come from a place of my own level of government experience in which we hire one law firm. We hire one law firm that offers a la carte and everything under the sun. And truth be told, they probably can do divorces too if I asked. But I mean, I think what my takeaways were, and this is what I shared with Nick, what my takeaways were from the sit down that we had is that both firms are not only experienced, but more than qualified with the other work that they do with a variety, a myriad of watersheds throughout the state. So that's my only comment is that I don't know necessarily that, you know, 2 is the best way or 1 versus the other is the best way, but I do think that these are appropriate questions to ask. The legal component of our budget, I mean, it's in every little subcategory department that we have on our jumbo budget sheet. So I think it is more than fair and adequate to ask these questions. And again, I appreciate the time involved with both of the law firms to sit down and answer those questions with us in person. Again, I'm not trying to argue with your point of view. I'm simply stating my own point of view and that in my own experience there, you know, that I personally, this is just me, I prefer a streamlined legal, you know, go-to. That's just me. I can only speak for me, and that is why I am just dialoguing the way that I am. I'm not asking anyone to get on board with that. I'm not saying I'm right, you're wrong. It's just my thoughts on the matter, since this is the matter before us.
Yeah, Mr. President, I would agree completely. I have the same feeling. And I'm going by my own personal experience too, and what I have discussed with other people in my area, and I've made my decision. And I'm sticking with it.
All right. So,
So just, Mr. Chair, just
Yeah.
to clarify, Nick, you gave us 3 2024-12s.
yeah. So
One was for
you-
both of them, one was for Smith
You read-
Partners,
yeah.
one was for Rinky Noonan.
You read the one for both,
And I read the one for both.
and I'd second that. So
Yes.
That's the
Brad-
motion that's on the floor.
Bradley, yes. Robertson,
No.
Wagman,
No.
Waller,
No,
Minot.
Yes.
That motion fails 3-2. The next one is to have
Let's see which
I'm
one.
going to get Ricky Noonan, is to have Ricky Noonan do it all. Is there a motion to have that version, which says, therefore be it resolved, the Board of Managers elects to extend the services agreement for legal services with Ricky Noonan for an additional 2-year period, 2025 through 2026.
Is that a motion? I'll second it, Mr. President.
Yep, that was, it is now a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm going to vote no on this one because if I'm going to have one law firm, I would rather go with Smith. So any other discussion?
The one thing I would just like to say, Mr. President, is I probably spent more time thinking about this decision than any other decision I've ever made on the board. And I just want it clear that I have absolutely nothing against Smith Partners and think they're both completely upstanding citizens and excellent lawyers and the whole deal. But I just think we need a change.
Roll call. Bradley, no. Robertson.
Aye.
Wagaman.
Yes.
Waller.
Yes.
Wynant.
No.
It passes 3-2. Mr. Smith, my apologies.
And mine too, because I feel bad, but
Apparently not bad enough.
Mr. President, Mr. Smith, thank you for your services and over the years and all the chats. I appreciate it.
and the same goes for me too.
Please tell the gentleman with the bowling shirt the same. I'll see you, no doubt, up at the convention.
Yes, we're up to the check register.
Manager Bradley, on page 288 of the packet is a resolution which is for the November check register, but the district only has one meeting in November, so you are authorizing the treasurer to review and approve payment of the November 27th check register, not to exceed $400,000 for operating expenses and $150,000 in surety returns. The definitive number yet to be determined.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board authorizes me, the district treasurer, to review and approve payment of the November 27th, 2024 check register in the amount not to exceed $400,000 for operating expenses and $150,000 for surety returns.
Second. Oh, you can second.
No, go
That's
ahead.
fine.
You beat me to it.
Oh, sorry.
Roll call. Bradley.
Manager
yes.
Bradley, just to make note, it's resolution 24-15.
15.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Bradley, yes. Robertson.
Aye.
Wagaman.
Yes.
Waller.
Yes.
Wynant.
Yes.
Passes.
And this check register, Mr. Chair, I move approval of the check registered from October 24th to November 13th in the amount of $160,618.02.
Second.
And there was a second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? That takes us to district engineer updates and timelines. Chris, do you have anything you want to say?
Mr. President, I don't have anything to note specifically, but certainly can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Chris? If not, I guess that takes us, what, to the calendar? November, December calendar is attached.
Yes, that's correct.
You'll note that there is no meeting on the 27th of this month, and there'll be no meeting, surprisingly enough, on Christmas Day.
Oh, shoot.
What a
And Steve
shame.
In fact, I'm
Wegman is,
reasonably certain this building will be closed.
and Steve Wegman is going to
I was just,
be
thank
at
you very
the
much.
CAC for me.
Yes.
Appreciate that. That's,
And Mr. President,
Yes.
it'd be important to note that the meeting that we do have on the 11th will be in the evening.
yes, thank you for that. That's at 6 o'clock. We'll be approving, I hope, a
6:30.
budget, 6:30.
6:30 here in this hall.
Yes.
Not at Roseville this time. Or here.
6:30. Sure, I got the 30 on my calendar. Is there, it's updates, administrative updates?
I've no updates since yesterday. Nope.
Suppose it helps we just dialogued this yesterday.
Waller, you have anything you want to say?
Well, Mr. President, you and I and Administrator Tomzak attended the Washington County Consortium meeting. And I thought that we all had a very good time with
The watershed roundup, you mean?
yeah, we're talking about the watershed. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'm about my meetings wrong. I wrote down consortium this morning. Confusing. This is the Watershed District annual meeting with the county board has with all the watershed districts and the Soil and Water Conservation District presentation. And Rice Creek's presentation was the new manure facility that's going to be up on JD2 and finished our contribution. And that happens to be the second one that Rice Creek has contributed to. And I'm working hard to find a third. It's hard to do these days. I think there are only 2, maybe 3 dairy farmers left in Washington County. And both of them are in Rice Creek or in JD2. I don't know if we even have another dairy farmer anywhere else in Columbus or Lino Lakes or such.
Not
So,
enough pasture.
well, yeah. So, but anyways, I thought it went pretty well. So we had some new members on the board. One new member of the board of commissioners, and there'll be another new member because one is retiring. And of course, we had a round of applause for Brian Johnson, who's been a member of the board for South Washington County since I think since the beginning of it in the late 90s. And he also served with me on the Water Governance Committee back in '98. So there were a couple other members in there too. But I don't know, maybe you have some comments to it.
It looked like a really interesting operation.
Well, Washington County has had this for a long time. I've been going to it for a long time. And they have been one of the leaderships in how governance works with watershed districts. And, you know, Washington County is still the only county, I believe, that has a groundwater plan. I don't think anybody else has one yet. Of course, that came about primarily because of forever chemicals from 3M. But nevertheless, they've worked very hard at that. So I have nothing else to contribute to this today. We've had long discussions. This will be a longer day as we go see our city partners today.
So I listened to the meeting yesterday morning, and do I understand that Bob, the CAC member from Washington County, passed away?
Yeah.
Yes, so condolences to his family. He served on the CAC
absolutely.
for
Yeah.
many, many, many years.
He had not sought reelection. I probably knew what his health was, so.
Yep,
He
yep.
was a wonderful person, kind, gentle.
So I have no other updates.
Okay.
That's too bad. I have nothing other than I'll just repeat that I will be doing the CAC, and thank you guys for committing to be delegates up at the at our deal. And I'm very sorry to Smith Partners. I liked working with you guys the whole time. You were great to me every time I talk to you, so I guess there's not much more to say, but thank you.
Manager Robertson.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing at this time.
And inquire who's going to be at the city partners this afternoon. 1 o'clock or 1:30? 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Says 1 o'clock.
1 to 3.
1 to 3.
I will be there, Mr. President.
I will be there.
I will be there.
I will be there.
I have a real job that's going to keep me from being there, so.
Well, I'd like to think this is a real job.
No.
Heavy
that's not what I mean.
lifting we've done the
I mean,
last
I don't
couple
have
days.
the luxury, I'm not retired yet.
No.
I need to win the lottery, and then I'll give you all my time.
Okay, I don't have anything further, so
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.